documentation, and punishments. Here is the following things that you need to know for this video. 1. Our attendance policy. 2. Excused versus unexcused absences. 3. Valid versus non-valid documentation. And 4th, punishments. To begin, our attendance policy. We take attendance very seriously here at TCS. Our expectation is that you will work all shifts which you have agreed to work. If you are unsure what that agreement was, simply reference your employee assignment offer. We expect you to work all your agreed upon assigned shifts in their entirety. That means from start to finish. If you do not do that, then those missed shifts will count as absences. Here at TCS, there are 2 types of absences: excused and unexcused. First, we will discuss excused absences. To qualify as an excused absence, the situation must be all 3 of the following items simultaneously. It must be urgent, it must involve immediate family, and it must be documented with verifiable proof. Next up, unexcused absences. These are absences where you did not call dispatch or management, absences where you told a coworker but you did not inform us, absences where you just did not show up, those are called no-shows, and absences where you showed up late or left early without approval. Important thing to remember is that a no-call, no-show is equal to a voluntary resignation. Excused absences are accepted only when 2 conditions are simultaneously met. First, you have to call TCS dispatch or the administrative office, not just your site supervisor or a coworker. And second, you have to provide proper documentation. Proper documentation looks like 1 or more of the following items: a doctor's note, emergency room or urgent care paperwork, court summons or jury duty notices, funeral documentation, or a police report, whether that is emergency or domestic in nature. So here are some examples of excused absence types and the documentation that would count as proper documentation for them. Let's say that you have a medical emergency involving a family member. Documentation that would be needed to prove that is 1 or more of the following. You would need either an admission/discharge document from the hospital or other care center, or a doctor's note confirming the emergency, or a hospital note that specifically requested your presence. How about if the absence is legal or protective in nature? For that, we would need a police report, or the court order, or the subpoena, or, if it involves children, the CPS documentation. Some more absence types. Say that it's a bereavement absence. What that means is that somebody died. For that, you would need to provide the funeral program, or the obituary, or the death certificate, or a letter from the funeral home, or the religious institution that was taking care of the funeral arrangements, or if you had to fly out to the funeral, a flight confirmation or other travel document as proof. And perhaps the issue at hand is an immediate family child care crisis. If that is the case, you would need a doctor's note for your child's illness, or a school notice of an emergency closure, or a note from a child care provider confirming that it was an urgent matter requiring your immediate attention. Those are all documentation types that would count in those specific circumstances. And if a situation comes up where you have an absence and you're trying to prove that it's an excused absence and you have some sort of documentation that has not already been discussed, then bring that up with the TCS office personnel, and we'll see what we can do to work with you. Because that is our ultimate goal, to work with you. You communicate with us, we'll communicate with you, we will hopefully come to a viable resolution. Now, on the other side of the coin, here are some examples of non-valid documentation types. These do not count. You cannot say, my friend or coworker said that I could take their shift. Also not acceptable is claiming that you left a voicemail if there was no follow-up or dispatch confirmation. You can't say somebody was sick with no documentation to back it up. You cannot do something like send a vague text saying something came up with my family. A social media message or a screenshot without context also does not count. And notes from non-medical, non-official sources do not count. An example of that would be a handwritten note from a friend. And finally, any excuse without proof or prior notice does not count as a valid documentation type. Now, a word of caution about excused absences. They do unfortunately have to have a limit. The reason why is that too many absences hurt the team and hurt the coverage at the site, which means that we are obligated to track all time off closely. What this means for you is that the clock resets every 2 months. So if you have 2 excused absences in 2 months, it's not a problem. We understand life happens. If you have 3 in 2 months, you're going to have a counseling session. If you have 4 in 2 months, that could lead to suspension or termination. Now, keep in mind, this is not TCS trying to be mean or unkind or having a lack of understanding. We have to follow FMLA rules, and those are detailed in our employee manual, which you receive a copy of as part of the orientation process. If you would like to see exactly where in the manual those are, somebody can show you. That will not be a problem. But the moral of the story is that TCS has to follow the FMLA rules, and those rules dictate the things that I have just outlined to you. Also of note is that unexcused absences also have a limit. If you have 1, it will be noted, but we do not necessarily have an issue depending on the surrounding circumstances. The thing you need to remember here is not to abuse that. Don't just assume that you can have 1 unexcused absence and you're free and clear. That's not how it works. If something happened and you could not communicate, like you genuinely couldn't communicate, then discuss that with TCS office personnel and perhaps we can figure something out. But when in doubt, communicate and it won't be a problem. Now, that's 1. If you only have 1, we don't necessarily have an issue. Talk to TCS office personnel about it. If you have 2, that becomes a suspension. And if you have 3, that is equal to a termination. Now, this does not reset every 2 months. This is just cumulative, all right? And remember, as previously stated, a no-call, no-show is equal to a voluntary resignation. So the best rule of thumb is if you're going to be absent, let us know, communicate, all that good jazz. And speaking of, what exactly do you do if you know you are going to miss work? Well, there are 4 very simple steps to this. Step 1 is call 972-385-1144 and select option 0. You will come to recognize that as the dispatch number, and it would be wise to save it in your phone. Step 2 is say your full name and location. And you're going to want to make sure that it's repeated back to you so that everyone's on the same page about who's talking to who and all that. Step 3, let us know what's going on and how long you expect to be out. We can't work with you if we don't have specific details. And finally, step 4, follow up. This means that you either email or drop off to the TCS office your documentation that is proof of why you had to miss work. That is any of the examples we talked about earlier in the video, and potentially more. And again, if it is a type of documentation or a type of circumstance that we did not specifically elaborate on in this video, bring that up with TCS office personnel, and we will see what we can do to make it so everyone is good to go. The key takeaway thought here is as follows. If you do not know whether your reason and/or your documentation will count, ask the office personnel. It's just the simplest way to go, and TCS is really, really good about making sure that we meet you in the middle. You communicate with us, we will do everything we possibly can to help you out. Final reminders. First and foremost, missing a shift without communication is considered job abandonment. You don't want that, and we don't want that, so just don't put either one of us in that position. Secondarily, the more reliable and communicative you are, the more likely that we can work with you. And third, all absences, excused or not, are monitored. They have to be. That's just the way the world works. So just be aware of that. Now, the big thing that we want you to remember at the end of the day is that this video and all the other ones you'll watch during your orientation are here to help you succeed. We want you to be here. We want you to be an incredible player on the team, and we appreciate your hard work and your honesty so much more than you know. So thank you for watching this video. Ask any questions that you have of whoever is doing orientation with you, and welcome to the team. Have a wonderful day.